So welcome to Hiring Administrator Training, which is through eRecruit. My name is Susan Groshong, and I'm your host for this session. I want to first thank you for taking the time to invest in your own development and participate in this year's Staff Recognition Week training seminars. We are happy that we have been able to bring you 30 sessions over the 3 days of learning, and hope that you can participate or have been able to participate in some of the other Staff Recognition Week activities that Staff Advisory Council coordinated for us this week. Now I'm going to go on and introduce our presenters, Stephanie Harrison and Keisha Jones. And I want to thank you both for bringing us this important and interesting topic. And now I'm going to turn off my mic and unanimate myself and let Stephanie and Keisha take it away from here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Susan. So like she said, my name is Stephanie Harrison. I am one of the HR recruitment specialists here in Campus HR. And then most of you are probably fairly familiar with Keisha Jones. She's been around in the HR office for a couple of years. But we are going to present the hiring manager training today, and we do have the new screens with the new fields that have to be filled out that just recently rolled out. So we'll go over all of that. Keisha is going to be watching the chat. So if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask us a question throughout as well. It's whatever you would prefer. So I will go ahead and get this started. And then in the meantime, Keisha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Like she said, I think most of you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Somebody nod.
You need to project a little bit more.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Almost.
Okay. So
there you go.
All right. I'm
there you
normally
go.
loud anyway, but I'm trying to use my inside voice. So I'm going to use my inside voice inside the conference room voice. Hi, I'm Keisha Jones with Human Resource Services. I'm the HR manager for staff recruitment. Currently, I manage the HR specialist. Of that, I have just one. That is Stephanie Harrison just now. And SOS temporary staffing. We are currently recruiting for 2 more HR recruitment specialists. So we hope to have those positions filled soon, very, very, very soon, to relieve some stress off of Stephanie, who's been very, very, very good the past few weeks. But she's going to be doing the training today, so she's going to prevent the HR manager training today, and I'm going to back her up with any questions. And like she said, I'll pay attention to the chat as well. So again, if you have any questions, put those in the chat. And then of course, if you have any questions and we're not quite there yet, like if it's coming up in the training, we may ask you to wait just a second or hold off on that. We'll get to it if it's something that's coming up. And if there's anything that we don't cover in the training, you can still feel free to ask that. So it might still be something that's relevant to what you do or what we do, or that will help you with your position or with recruitment or with your position as an administrator here at the university. So nice to see everyone today. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started then. So today we're going to go over new or vacant position numbers, creating a posting, approving one, screening the applicants, extending or canceling the positions, dispositioning, sending the correspondence, and then creating a job offer. And then we'll slightly walk through the steps of preparing for the hire. So as most of you know, if you need new staff position numbers, then you would need to complete the position classification questionnaire or the PCQ form, and you would submit that into the HRS requisition inbox. Once we've received it, then we get it over to our HR professionals for your assigned college, school, or division, and then they will go through and obtain the appropriate approvals and discuss with system, or send recommendations back, kind of whatever they need to do in order to get the position set up for you. One of the newer things that we are kind of starting to see come through is departments are wanting to unfreeze positions. If the position has been frozen for, I think we decided over a year, then you would need to go ahead and go through that PCQ process, especially with all of the changes over the last year with COVID and everything. Then they are wanting to review those positions prior to them just being unfrozen. So once you have your position number that you're going to use, then you would start to create your job posting. And so for many of you, you would go into recruiting activities or to the recruiting homepage, depending on how your screen looks. And then you would click on create the job opening. You can also get to it by going through your navigation bar. So over on that far right-hand corner, if you click on the diamond that's kind of over there, then it'll give you this navigation bar. You can go down to Navigator and then recruiting, and then you can do create job postings from there. So either way, and if you go through the navigation bar, then you can always save the create job opening to your favorites. And then that way, whenever you go back into it, then you can just click on your favorites and look at it from there. So
Tim Morrison wants to know what the timeline is in receiving a position number.
So it really just kind of depends on how busy your HRP is once everything gets turned in. I know that they like to kind of have it turned around within probably about 2 weeks. If it's a position that's, you know, fairly simple and quick, and they don't have to consult with the UM compensation team, then they can usually get it turned around fairly quick and back to you. But since we are coming off of all of the exception process for new position numbers being created and reviewed, you know, with stricter guidelines due to COVID, we have seen a big influx of requests. So some of the HRPs are pretty bogged down and they're taking a little bit longer to come back.
So receiving the position number isn't the part that takes the longest. That's something that we create pretty quickly. It's the review of the position by the UM compensation team that's going to take the longest. So it really just depends on what it is and what they're reviewing and how they feel about what you submitted.
Yeah. So likely it's going to be around that 2-week time frame, but it could be longer depending on if there's more questions and that type of thing.
Right.
If you and if you provide all of the necessary information up front, then you're likely going to get it back quicker than if the HRP has to go back and forth with you several different times to ask follow-up questions.
So I would make sure that PCQ is as complete as possible, provide as much information as possible. If it's a brand new position, you're going to want to send an org chart. Those are helpful. And I would say typically, and we've always said this, I mean, I've been here 22 years, and so it's never been that you submitted a PCQ and it was automatic. So at the very minimum, you should expect at least 2 weeks. If you get it back sooner than that, then consider yourself blessed, but just expect at least 2 weeks. And then, like I said, it could happen quicker than that.
Yeah. Was there a second question?
Nope, that was
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then once you go in to create the job posting, and this screen is going to look a little bit different because the standard requisition that you would select for your opening type, this is an older screenshot, but still had relevant information, so I left it in there. But it will pull in most of this information based off your position number. So whenever you put your position number in on this page, you're going to want to review and make sure that it has your department listed correctly, the job code listed correctly, and then your recruiting location. So for all of us on Cologne campus, except for Extension has a few exceptions that they have in there, our recruiting location is always going to be Columbia. So not the UM system Columbia. There is one specifically just for Cologne campus. So these screenshots came from Greg Nelson over in HRIS with systems. So that's why some of the system information is in there. But you do want to verify that all of the information is correct here before you go any further, because the further you get into it, if we need to correct information for that position number, it just takes a lot of extra work from behind the scenes. It can be done, but it's easier to do it up front rather than once it's already posted.
Bonnie Claire is asking for Springfield. Do I use Columbia also? Oh.
I think we do actually have a
Springfield.
Springfield location. So the location actually isn't going to show up anywhere once the job is posted to the website. It's really something more, just for documenting purposes within eRecruit. So if you do select Springfield or Columbia, then either one will probably be fine.
I'm gonna look while we're
Yeah.
talking, just to double check. Sometimes I have to refresh my own memory.
Yeah, I think I do actually have a screen in here that also
Okay.
shows all of the options too. So
Okay.
we can double check on there as well. So once you've entered your position number and everything, then the next screen that you're going to get to, you want to make sure that the template ID is for Columbia staff. So if by chance the page that you get to doesn't look familiar, there's a good chance that it's pulled in the wrong template ID. So our other campuses within system, they do have their own templates. Their HR offices handle things a little bit differently than how Columbia does for the most part. So if anything looks off from what you're used to seeing, then that would probably be our first guess as to what might be wrong. But you'll want to verify that, and then if it is correct, then you're fine to proceed. You want to look at your target number of openings. So there's a lot of times where departments will have multiple patient service rep positions that they need to post. Rather than posting, 4 or 5 different positions separately, you can post them all within one. And then that way you have the same applicant pool for all of your positions that you're going to fill. Just make sure that on full-time positions, if you put that you have 4 target openings, then you do need to have 4 position numbers listed on there. Okay. Part-time positions can be a little bit different, since part-time positions can have more than 1 head count within that position number. But that's something that we can check into for if you do have part-time positions.
There is a Springfield.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, you could use Springfield if you would like to. Okay, so here is the new information that we've just launched. I believe May 14th is the live date. Yeah. So any position that you post from here on out, you will also need to select the desired start date. And that can just be your best guess. You don't have to be, if it changes, then that's totally fine. The type of position, and we'll go into these a little bit more on the next screen. And then your posting justification, and then your funding source. Okay, so funding source was something that we actually added a few months ago. And so people have started putting that information in there on if it's operational or auxiliary funds, or if it is grant funded. So this is information that they do want to start tracking. So the type of position you'll select if it's a new or a replacement. If it is a replacement, then you do have to put in the employee ID number a little bit further down to show who is being replaced. But these are the 2 options for those drop-down menus on the type of position and the funding source. And so then this is your job posting justification. So the majority of the time, you guys are going to select standard recruitment. Okay. There are other options. So like your direct promote, that is if you're doing a promotion or a posting just within your office. So with that, you work closely with the HRP, and then you'll send out the job posting just to those within your department. And then kind of how you handle it from there just depends on how your department wants to do it. If they want you to send the resumes to a certain person, or kind of however you want to do it. Then there is the exception to recruit. With that one, you do have to have approval from Patty Haberberger allowing for that exception to take place. You can post for internal only. Standard recruitment is the one that we're going to use the majority of the time. Temp to perm, our SOS staff use that here for us, and that's whenever they're placing someone that's going to go from being in one of those temporary positions to a permanent position within the department. Our union postings, they'll have union on there, and then I've not seen the union in-shop promotion used very often, but it can be used, so it is there still as an option as well. Okay, so like I mentioned, if you select replacement as the type of position, then further down below where you put in the position numbers, you are going to have to list the employee ID of the person that's being replaced. Okay, and I've had a few questions of, oh, well, this person is going to retire, but they haven't retired yet. Do you still want me to put that information in there? And the answer is yes. So there are certain times when you know, two people can be in a position number if it's very shortly of an overlap, and if it's that exact example of the person's going to retire, but there's going to be some overlap for training, then that is something that can take care of that. So, but you do need to list who the employee is that's being replaced. Okay, so this is where the other recruiting location options are. So for Columbia, it's always going to be that 1012, and then Springfield does have their own for 1022. And so that helps if people are searching for a specific area when they go into the application website, then they can sort it out by that. But like I said, Columbia is going to be the main one that you use, and then Extension can use like the region ones. They'll typically use those. So, but once you're further down on this, you are going to want to make sure that a primary position is selected and the primary location is selected. So if by chance you had two locations that you were looking for, you could put more than one recruiting location if you needed to. So, okay. So if you'll scroll further down on that same page, whenever you're in there, this is where it's going to show more of the position number information. So it's going to show you what the primary job code is, if it's full-time or part-time. If it is full-time, but it's had a reduction of FTE, you know, say the person prior to that you're replacing only worked 32 hours, but this person's going to work 40 hours, then you would see this information here. And again, if it needs to be updated, go ahead and send us an email so it can be updated prior to it being put on the website. Just, it makes it easier. And then down below, it shows the salary information. You will see that it shows the salary range, and it's the full range for that job code. Even if you don't want to post the full range for the position, still don't change this information here, because this isn't going to show up anywhere. You're going to be able to list specifically what your salary range is going to be on the job posting tab, and we'll get to that one here in just a few moments. But like I said, you'll want to review this information. Just make sure that if it's full-time or part-time, that it's listed correctly, and the number of hours and the job code is correct. Okay, so then the next tab that you're going to go over to is the hiring team. So you'll click on the add recruiter team, and whenever that pulls up, you'll just you'll pick the column staff recruiting team, and it'll pull in whoever we have listed. As you can see, Valencia is still listed on there. So this is an old screenshot. Right now, it just shows me and Keisha. And then you're going to want to add in who your hiring manager is for the position. And then you can also add in, if you have more than one interviewer, you can list them on there. And then one of the biggest things that we want to remind you of is for any IT positions, then Karen Kessler does need to be added as an interested party. The way that the Division of IT has it set up is that Karen Kessler touches everything right before it comes to us for final approval. So all job descriptions and job offers have to be reviewed by her. She usually checks with Brandon Huff and Nikki Whitting to make sure that everything is, you know, good to go and ready to be either put on the website or the offer falls in line with others in those titles for campus. So,
and we know if it comes from Karen Kessler, then it's been approved, and if we don't see her name on it, we're not going to touch it.
Yeah, we will. What I'll do is I'll add Karen Kessler to it and send it over to her. So if you do ever submit something and it takes a little longer getting it back, if Karen wasn't on there, that's typically why. So that means that I've sent it over to her and I've waited to hear from her in order to proceed. So, all right, so then the next tab that you're going to go into is the job posting tab. And so it's going to automatically pull in your job posting title based on your position number and the job code that's assigned to that position number. So then you're going to want to click on add job posting. And then on that next screen is where you're going to have those individual description boxes that you can list. So the required fields that we would like for you to add is the hiring department, job description, salary information, the shift, even if it's just Monday through Friday at 8 to 5, still listed in there. And then the benefit eligibility, which includes the EEO and diversity statement for the university. So then that's the information that we are requiring from you guys to put in there. I myself, as one of the recruiters, we will add in the minimum qualifications. If you guys like to go ahead and have your minimum qualifications listed in there, that's completely fine. We will just verify and make sure that they match up with the official job description that comes from the UN compensation team. So the other optional fields that you can have on there are your preferred qualifications for the position, application materials, application deadline, other information about the department, and then Columbia, Missouri information. One thing I will point out is if you list an application deadline, you're completely welcome to do that. But if you list May 28th as your application deadline and on May 24th you submit a job offer to me for it, I'm going to push it back and tell you that you have to wait until your May 28th deadline. So basically, if you list a deadline, you have to leave it up until then. And then after that, you can, review your candidates, make job offers, that type of thing. So a lot of times, if you list an application deadline, we will, email back and just say, just heads up, you're fine to have this, but if you list it, then you have to stick by it. Same thing with salary. So that's another thing. If you're not going to post the full salary range, again, you're more than welcome to not post the full salary range. But if you have an OS4 position and you only list up to $18 as the top of your range, and then you have someone come in and they completely blow you away and they'll be an excellent fit, but they are requesting, like $19 or $20 an hour, then we're going to push back and tell you that you have to repost it with the higher job or with the higher salary range if that's what you choose to do. Because you could have a completely different applicant pool if you do that. If people see that you're only willing to go up to $18 an hour, but they already make 19, then they're, the likelihood of them applying is probably not going to be there because most people don't want to take pay cuts. So just know that if you do a small salary range, we may push back and just ask, if you're sure you want to do that, or that, kind of just clarify what your goals are. Do we have a question?
Trustee White says if there isn't a deadline listed, can you start interviewing offer before the post is taken down?
You can, as long as it's been up for at least 5 business days.
So there's still a minimum posting period.
Right. So it does still have to be up for the five business days at the very least. And then you can start to review applications, and make an offer after that if you've already decided on who you would like.
So you can interview at any time.
Yeah.
But offering can't happen until after it's met its minimum posting period, and an offer also can't happen until you've submitted it through the proper process and the recruitment's been approved by our office.
Okay, so this is what this page will look like, and so in order to add in the other areas that you need, so like the hiring department, the job description, you just click on add posting description, and then you'll use your drop down menu to select what description type it is. On visibility, always select internal and external. Even if you are posting the position only internally, go ahead and do internal and external, just because if by chance you end up having to switch and post it externally as well, then our office doesn't have to make sure and select all of those to be internal and external. It's just one of those extra steps that can easily get missed on our part if we're, trying to go through and just get it posted for you fairly quick. And then one thing I will point out is that on the benefit eligibility, this is the only description type that's going to have a description option over on the right, to where you can click on the magnifying glass and then pull in the benefit information specifically for whatever one you're posting.
And the eligibility and Columbia information.
Yes, oh, that's right, and the Columbia information has it as well, thank you. But you have benefit eligible, yes, benefit eligible, no. There is an academic benefit eligible information that you can pull in on those academic titles. And then for our student titles, we do have the Columbia student description that can be pulled in as well for benefit eligibility. And basically it just says you're not eligible for benefits, you're in a student title. And I don't think it even gives them the option to pay into voluntary retirement or anything like that. I don't think it does. I don't know. It's been a while since I've actually read that one, so I forget what's in there.
It basically says you're not benefit eligible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then down at the very bottom of that page, you are going to select where you want it to be posted for. So this is where you're going to indicate on if you want it to be an internal only posting, or if you do want it internal and external, then you would select both of those for Colum staff. And then down below, you'll see that we have a kind of a timeline off to the side. And what this is historically, the person that was selected for that type of a role, they applied within that number of weeks or days. So internal union postings, those have to stay up for the 5 business days, regardless of what the department wants to do. They have to stay up for the 5 business days. And then after that, if you need to post externally as well, then you can. But they automatically, all of the union postings go up internal only at first for the 5 business days. And then you can see office administrative support staff, though the person that was ultimately hired usually applied within that first week of the position being posted. So, but like I said, the only minimum posting requirement is that it's up for 5 business days. After that, if you want to have it up for 2 weeks or a full month, that's up to you guys in the department. And then again, if you want to start reviewing applications, bring people in for interviews, you're welcome to do that at any time. And you can make an offer to somebody anytime after that 5 business days, unless you've put up an application deadline. Then we're gonna make you guys stick to that. So, but once you've done that, then you can preview what your job posting is going to look like. Okay, and it doesn't matter what order you put hiring department, job description, minimum qualifications. It doesn't matter what order you put it in on the previous screen. Our system is going to automatically put it into the same format each and every time. One thing I will point out is if you do an internal only posting and you go to preview your job opening, this is going to pull up a blank screen because as you'll see right there below where it shows the job title, it says switch to internal view. If you click on that and you have an internal only posting, then it'll pull in your job description that will go up on the website.
But the only thing I would add is just to go back to, can we go back a couple of screens?
One more.
One more.
Okay.
So when you're adding these boxes, there are some things you can do in there, like you can add hyperlinks. If you want to add a hyperlink that talks about your department, so a hyperlink to your department webpage, or you want to use a different font, you can. You can do things like that to make it look a little different. I would make sure that you're using the same font in each box, because sometimes I see that. So when I look at a posting, there's a different font in each description or in each box. I'll go through and change it because it looks a little strange. Each font and the size of the font is different. It looks a little weird when it's posted. So just so it looks consistent and the posting looks good, I'll go through and change it so that it's all one font. It's all the same size font. But you can, change it up a little bit if you want. So if you like Comic Sans, you can do that. But like I said, you can add hyperlinks and do some other things. So it allows you to do that. And so it's pretty easy to do within there, and you can do that on your own. So in each box will allow you to do that as well. So, and you can also spell check. So within there, and it's real simple. So that's all.
Okay. So once you've looked over your preview and you click on return to previous page, I'm sorry, I promise, I'm fully vaccinated, even though Keisha and I are in the same room. Allergies have been killing me over the last week and a half, which I'm sure most of you, if you're in Missouri, are feeling the same. So once you're back on that previous screen, though, you're going to have the save and submit or save as a draft. So in order for you to see the approvals tab, you're going to have to click on that save and submit. And then once you've done that, then you'll be able to add any required attachments to the activities and attachments tab. And then you'll also have that approvals tab. So then that way, if you need to go in and add people to your approval chain, then you're able to do that.
Holly Young wants to know if they need to email us to send a job, and the answer is yes.
Yes, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit as well, a little bit further in detail. So, okay, so in order to add somebody to your approval chain, once you're on that approvals tab, then you're going to click on the green plus sign, and then you will use the magnifying glass to look up the person's user ID. And usually it's easiest if you search by their name. User ID, I can just never get it to work. Even if I type in the person's exact user ID, I can't even get it to work on myself. So just type in their last name, and then you would hit search. Once you've selected the person, then you would, you'll be taken back to that screen where it has insert. And so you'll just put them in there as an approver. And then you don't have to add our office, because we will automatically always be put at the end. And we are in the recruiter group with the multiple approvers. So, okay. And again, if you have an IT posting, make sure that Karen Kessler is added to the approval chain. Like we said, she reviews everything prior to it being fully approved by our office. And if it is an IT title and Karen hasn't seen it, then we will not approve it to be put up on the website until she has let us know that it's okay to move forward with it. Okay, so then this is what it's going to look like once you've added people to the approval chain and everything. And then this is how it looks to us whenever we get it. And then once we've reviewed and done everything, then we will go ahead and click approve. And then once an hour, the system does a system update. And then that's when your position is going to be up on the website and active for people to apply to. So this is the email that's going to be sent, or something very similar will be sent to whoever's in your approval chain. So if you add like your fiscal person or your business manager for your department, then this is the email they're going to get. If they are not already signed into PeopleSoft Production, then they will have to sign in whenever they click on this link. But it should work for them to go straight into the position once they've signed in. So, and then this is what they're going to see whenever they go in. So the purpose of them being in the approval chain is to review the information that you have entered and just verify that that's exactly how they want everything. And so they need to check and verify that, the department is listed correctly, the position information is listed correctly. And then, they need to review the hiring team, make sure that no extra people need to be added as an interviewer or as an interested party. And then up at the top, they'll click on the job posting tab in order to go in and review everything that you've put in for the job posting. And they'll be able to go through and see all of the information that's in there. And this is where it's important for them to look at like the salary range, make sure that you've listed the range that they've requested, and same with any preferred qualifications. And then it's always a good idea for them as well to read through the job description, just make sure nothing needed to be updated. We've had a lot of people recently, they'll submit something and then they'll email me, a few hours later, and they'll say, oh, wait, we needed to change this and this in the job description. We forgot we made these changes before we sent it over to you. So it's always good just to read through everything just to be sure that everything's correct before it goes on the website. So yeah, and then once they get over to the approvals tab, then they'll just go ahead and click approve for themselves, and it'll send it to whoever's next in the approval chain. So if they're the last person in the approval chain before the recruiter group, then it'll come over to me and Keisha after that. and then we'll review it and get it posted as long as everything's correct. So once we do receive it, then what we will do is we will go in and we will enter the screening questions and the minimum qualifications. So minimum qualifications and screening questions are set by the compensation team. If we have specific questions for job codes that need to be added, then we can always work with Greg Nelson to get those added if necessary. Or we could even add them in as preferred qualification questions if necessary. So if you have a specific one that you need extra questions or extra screening done on them, just reach out to us and we'll work with you as much as we can. So, okay. And then I kind of can't see because this thing is blocking my view. We'll put that on here. Okay. So once we've added in the screening and everything and we get it all posted, so then our office will go through every morning to review the applications that have come in. And we will go through and screen all of the applicants prior to them being routed over to the hiring manager. So when people first apply, then they are in an applied status. Only those of us in the recruiter group can see them. And then once they've gone through the screening process and if they've met all of the minimum qualifications, then we will route them over to make them viewable for the department. And then our office will send correspondence to them, letting them know that they have met the minimum qualifications and that if the department wishes to reach out to them for an interview, then they will be contacted by them. All right. There we go. All righty. Any questions before we kind of dive into the rest of the process? Okay, so once the position is posted, like we said, you can start to review your applicants and start interviews as soon as you would like. No offers can be made until the 5 business days has been met, or if you put an application deadline on there. But whoever is considered the hiring administrator for your area, they will need to go in and update the disposition for each of the applicants that's being interviewed, and or you can reject anyone that is not going to be considered by your hiring team. Now, I will say, if you're going to reject someone that you think could possibly be considered, if other people were to fall out of your applicant pool, then don't reject them quite yet. Because once you've hit reject on them, then you're not going to be able to see them in your list anymore. And you would have to email our office to either have them rerouted to you or whatever the case may be for that situation. So if you're for sure that you're not going to consider them at all, then you're welcome to go ahead and mark them as reject and send them correspondence, letting them know that they're not being considered. Or it's sometimes better to wait until the end once you know for sure who's going to be considered and who's not. The department will schedule their own interviews and then communicate that with the candidates. And so you'll want to make sure that you include information about if, especially in these times, if the interview is going to be conducted over Zoom or if they are going to be expected to come on campus. And then you'll also just want to make sure that they have all of the information that they need in case they are coming in person on campus, about where to go, that masks are required, that type of information, and where to park. That's kind of one of the biggest questions that we always get if they do have in-person interviews, is where they're supposed to park. And then once all of your interviews are scheduled, then the interviewer and the search committee will go ahead and conduct their interview, and then you guys will select your final candidates. And once the final candidate is selected, then that's when you'll go through, submit the job offer. And we'll go into that here in just a minute as well in detail. So anyone that is going to help view the applications, this is how you'll go in. So you'll still go into recruiting activities, or for you guys, you all can just select the My Job Openings. As you can see on there, if I select that, then it's going to pull up every single job that campus has posted, including some of the system ones. So it doesn't do me any good to use the My Job Openings tab or the My Applicants tab, because I'll see everyone that's applied. But you guys should be able to, because it's only going to pull in the ones that you've been assigned to, or that you're listed as part of the hiring team. But you can always just search for your job openings as well if you know your job ID number. And this is the screen that you'll get. And so you can either search by job title or by job opening. And then you'll just click on whichever job that you're wanting to view the applications on. And then once you have your applications pulled up, then you're going to see if their application, you could click on that little icon to pull that in, or you could click on their resume as well. So you can click on or get into view both of those just from this main screen. You can also disposition them. So if you wanted to, you could mark them as reviewed, you could mark them as interview, or even as reject. Now, if you select reject, then you are going to have to select the reason that you are rejecting them. But if you click over on this very far one for the print icon, then you can actually pull in a PDF of all of their application material. So if you are in the position to where you're just gathering the applicant's material to send off to like your interview committee, then that's a super easy way to get everything into one PDF document and not have to send multiple things for the same person. So whenever you click on that, then it's going to pull up the next screen that you can go through and select what you want to be included. And so it will also let you know in that far right column if they have information available for that particular person. And so you can choose the work experience, if they have licenses and certifications. In the attachment type, you can always have it include resume attachments, letter reference, cover letters, those types of things. And so then at the bottom of that page, you can click on the save my selections, and then it will save that for you every single time you go into this screen. And then once you've selected everything you want included, then you would click on generate report. And this is what it's going to pull up as, okay? So it's gonna have their name and their their basic information on that front page. And then it's gonna go into their resume, cover letter, and then any other documents that they've uploaded that they want included on this job application. Okay, so Holly, to answer your question, yes, you still email us in order to extend the closing dates for your positions. This is so that we can kind of review those requests. So if we have a position that's been up and extended multiple times in a 6-month period, depending on the position, if it's a fairly simple position to be filled, or if it's not one of our unique titles, then we may push back and say, like, hey, you guys may want to look over your job description, make sure everything that is listed correctly, because, if it's an office support 4 and it's taking you guys 6 months to fill the position, then somewhere along the line, some information isn't being communicated correctly, so that the applicants that you're receiving are meeting what you need. And so we just like to review that. And on top of that, if it's a position that's been posted for a really long time, then we're probably going to tell you that it needs to be taken down, refresh the job description, maybe even consider a PCQ if the job description doesn't really match the title that you have, and then just repost with a new posting. So if you have a position that's been up for 6 months or so, on the website, it's going to show how long the position has been posted. So if you've had it up for 6 months and it's one of those titles that should be fairly easy to fill, people are going to wonder what's taking so long. Like, why is this still up? Is the department super picky, or kind of that information. So it doesn't, or that type of thing. It just doesn't leave a good impression on people if they've seen that a position has been posted for a really long time. So anything to add on that?
Sounds about right.
Okay. Okay, so same concept with if you're canceling or closing a position. So sometimes you guys or we'll get emails from people saying, oh, we want to close this position. Well, we will email back and ask, are you just wanting it taken down from the website, or are you wanting to cancel the position, completely close it out? So depending on how you answer that, then we will go from there. Let's see, when we need to repost old positions, you automatically cancel, close old position. So it kind of depends. So usually what I'll do is if I get a request to extend a position and it's already kind of getting close to that time frame of having been up too long, I will usually respond and say, I've extended it for this amount of time, but after this, once the position comes down, then you guys need to go ahead and close it out and repost a refresh one.
So I have a question.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of a weird question to me. Is she saying she's posting the position again? And so there's an old position out there. Do we automatically know to cancel the position? No, we don't.
Yeah, we won't know unless
There's
you
no
tell us.
trigger. So we're not automatically looking. We're not saying, hey, here's a vet med specialist or whatever. I wonder if there's a vet med specialist with this same position number. There's no trigger when that pops up. So no, we wouldn't know to cancel it unless somebody told us.
Right.
Because we're not looking. So if you know there's an old one, then you should let us know that you're canceling, or you need to cancel it so that we can do that.
So like
Yes, if we tell you,
Yeah.
if you tell us that the one that you want to extend, if you're telling us you want to extend one and you tell us it's too old, then yes, we know about it. But if you just post a position, which people do, then we would have no idea that there's one hanging out there. I mean, we've got 300 postings out there, so
kind of hard to keep up with each and every one of them. But like I said, so the way that I handle it is I kind of give a warning the last time I'm going to extend it and just say, after this time, it's going to need to come down and you'll need to repost. The departments that I've worked with over the last year and a half, they've done a fairly decent job of saying, okay, we're going to close this one out and repost. And so they'll email me to close that position out. And then they'll just let me know that they're going to repost it.
yeah,
yeah.
if we tell them it's too old, we will cancel that one and then they can post a new one.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but if it's one that's posted and then, you guys just let it close on its own and come down on the website and you're gonna not use that one again and repost a new one, just email us and let us know that we need to take that old one and cancel it out. So,
But unfortunately, we have some departments that forget they have a posting out there and just keep posting the same job over and over.
right.
So that hangs out there. So that happens. So I'm just gonna tell you, at the end of the year, we do an affirmative action report. And so I get an email from the affirmative action person. I think her name's Lisa. Is it Lisa?
Lisa Barnum?
Yeah, Lisa Barnum. And so she emails me and was like, hey, these jobs need to be cleaned up. And it happens around October, November.
Mm-hmm.
When I go through that list and I see that you've got a job that's been hanging out there for about a year and there's been no activity or communication on it, you haven't seen an application for it in about 8 months, I'm not asking you about it, I'm canceling it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get an email that says this job's been canceled. And then if I go out there and I pull it up and I see that there's 2 postings with the same position number because you forgot about it, you're probably also gonna get an email with a cancellation without any communication from me, because there needs to be no heads up about a job you forgot about. So I'm just gonna let that be known. I've been doing that for about 2 years. Well, probably about 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you get emails like that, so far, no one said anything about it. Because like I said, people forget about it. Half the time when I do that, it's for positions that were posted by people who aren't even here anymore. So if you get those emails and you're like, what is this? If you're saying, what is this? It's because you already forgot about it. So there's nothing that needs to be done about it. And if it's for a job that you think you still need to fill, then you probably just need to submit a new posting. And that's okay. We'll approve the new posting.
Yep. So, and if it's not one of the situations where the posting's just been up for too long, but you guys have had it posted and then the department has decided that they're not going to be able to, fill it, or they want to take the position in a different way, then you can email us to take it down as well. And so basically, we're just going to ask, what's the reason for this being canceled? And we're also going to make sure that correspondence has been sent out to the applicants, letting them know that this position isn't going to be filled. Or if it's a situation where we're going to close this one out and we're going to repost it as a different title, then you can include that information in the correspondence that you send out to the applicants. You can say, we're not filling it at this title. We're going to repost it this. If you're interested, please watch for blah, blah, blah. But we want correspondence to be sent out to our applicants because that's our biggest feedback that we receive, is that they never hear on if they're not being considered for positions, or if the position has been closed out altogether. So that's why it's really important that correspondence gets sent out. And then what we do is we save the information that you've sent us and we attach it to the posting. So then that way, if in a couple months or so, somebody comes back and says, hey, wait, why was this canceled? We can look at it and say, oh, this person emailed us and said the department requested it to be canceled for such and such reason. Okay. So for us, it's documentation purposes. And then that way we can just have it in there and know exactly what we did and why we did it for that position, without us having to rely on our memories, because like Keisha mentioned, we have a lot of jobs posted, so it's hard to keep up with just one or two specific ones. So.
Right, and sometimes you guys have, 10 people on your interview committees.
Right.
Multiple people, communicating multiple things, and so,
yeah.
Sometimes someone doesn't know what's going on, and then that way we can keep track of what happened.
Exactly. So, all right. So going along with sending correspondence to the applicants, it's also really important to disposition the candidates. Okay. And one of the reasons why we need to know that is if someone ever comes back and claims a grievance for why they weren't selected or why they weren't interviewed for a position, we can look back on this and see, oh, they were rejected because they didn't have the preferred qualifications or the preferred experience for this particular position. Okay. But letting us know and putting in eRecruit what people were actually considered for the position, it's part of the documentation process that is required of us in terms of equal opportunity. And if we were to ever be audited, then we would be able to prove who was considered for positions, who we interviewed, who was rejected, and why. Okay. So it used to be that departments needed to maintain their own interview records and that type of thing in the department. eRecruit takes the place of that. So you guys can upload your interview notes to the activities and attachments tab. You can put in any communication that went back and forth, for your interview committee, discussing which applicants they thought would be the best fit and why. Any documents that you add to the activities and attachments tab, it's for like the department's own best interest, because like I said, if anybody ever comes back and they question it or they turn in a grievance because of not being selected for a position, then we have all of the documentation already in our hands to be able to use and show the person, or whoever is helping with if an HRP is involved, then we already have all the information. We don't have to reach out to you guys and say, hey, do you remember why you didn't select Keisha Jones to be, for this position, so it saves you guys a lot. And then you don't have to maintain that information in your office because it's already stored in PeopleSoft. Okay. So like I said, if you list someone as rejected, then you are going to have to select the reason for it. Okay. And it could be that they don't have the required education or the preferred education, or they don't have the preferred experience, whatever the case may be. Okay. But there's several different rejection reasons out there. So you'll just select one, and then that is going to be recorded with the disposition for that candidate. And so you can also reject multiple people if you need to. And you can also just reject or mark as interviewed or mark reviewed from that main page. Okay, if you want to do it individually for each of the candidates. If you like, you can also do it by going into other actions and then edit dispositions, once you click on recruiting actions, and then you can select the different options from that drop-down menu as well. Some of those dispositions are going to go away at some point. I know we've talked about taking away the invite for interview because that doesn't show up in our affirmative action reports that are pulled every year. And so they would prefer us to use interview instead. So if you're going to go through and mark the people that you want to interview, instead of putting them as invite for interview, then just select interview. It'll be easier for you. Okay, you can also reject multiple candidates at once if you would like to. And so what you would do is you would check mark the boxes next to their name on the left-hand side of the page, and then scroll all the way down, and you're going to click on group actions, and then recruiting actions, and edit disposition. Okay, and then you can go in and mark them however, mark the disposition for whichever way you need. And then you can also send correspondence that exact same way. So at the end of hiring, your person has been offered and they've accepted, and so then you're going to send out the rejection email to anyone else. If you have not had correspondence with them individually, then sending a rejection from the system is perfectly acceptable. Now, if you choose to, for those candidates that you have interviewed or had interaction with over the phone or in person, then it would be better to send that correspondence in a personal message. Okay, that way it would just kind of closes things out for the candidates and gives them a better experience overall. But you would send correspondence the same way. You would check mark the boxes, go down to group actions, click on applicant actions, and then send correspondence. Okay, and then you can choose from a variety of templates that we have out there already. You will want to delete your email address from the CC field, and you don't have to add Keisha Jones in there. She did receive a lot of emails one time because they thought they needed to add her in there instead. And then you would also want to uncheck that interested parties. So if you by chance forget to remove your email address from that CC field, if you are sending emails to 10 or 15 applicants, you are going to get a copy of every single one of those emails. So just make sure you take your email address out of there, and you can leave that box blank, and then you'll send it out, and then it'll be recorded in the system that correspondence was sent as well. And so we would be able to track that also. You can click on preview so that you can see what the email is going to look like. And so this is one that was the generic regret email saying that they weren't selected for the position, but it tells them to continue to look on our website for other job opportunities, you know, and continue to apply as they feel like they would like to. So, and then once you're done previewing it, then you are going to click on send, and it's going to send the email out. Now, one of the biggest questions that we get from departments is, if I mark a candidate as reject, is the system going to automatically send correspondence out to that applicant? And the answer is no. So PeopleSoft will not send any automatic correspondence to the applicants once they have submitted their application to us. Okay, so any correspondence that goes out is done manually from either someone in our office or someone in your department's office. So even the correspondence that goes out that tells them that they've met minimum qualifications, whoever is screening the applicants in our office that day, they're the ones that send that email out. So feel free to go ahead and reject the candidates. It's not going to send anything out, but just make sure that you send the correspondence at some point that says, you know, they're not being considered for this position. Okay, so any questions before we move on to the offer stage? Okay. All right. So in this section, we're going to go over how to create the job offer, the job offer approval, if you need to edit the job offer, the criminal background check, and then the onboarding. Okay. So whenever, once you guys have interviewed your candidates and you've decided who you're going to offer, then whoever is considered the hiring administrator for your area is going to enter that salary information into eRecruit. Okay, and you can include your moving expenses and hiring incentive as well, if it's applicable to your situation. And then in the comments field, that's right below where you enter the salary information, then we ask for this information. Okay, so we want the rate of pay is going to be entered for your salary. Make sure that if it is a non-exempt position, that you're entering the hourly rate. And if it isn't an exempt position, then you're entering the monthly rate. So if we get offers over to us and it has the yearly rate, then we're going to push it back to you and tell you to enter it however it needs to be for that specific position. If there's an approved working title for the position, then we do want that included in the comments box. The most important one that you put in there for us is the FTE. So we really need to know, is this person a 1.0? Are they 0.80, 0.75, whatever the case may be. But if it's anything below 1.0, the reason why we need this is because, one, if the offer is over midpoint, but they're not working a full time or something, then that could come into play in determining if the offer is acceptable or not. And then we also like to include a sentence in the offer letter that states, this position will have an FTE of blah, 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 which equals this number of hours. So we just like to include it in the offer letter. So then that way, the candidate that's being offered to, they have that understanding up front as well of how many hours that they'll work. Then you can list in your anticipated start date, the work address, the time to report on their first day, and then the supervisor's name and contact information. So if the only thing in the comment box is the FTE, then that's perfectly fine. We'll move forward with the other, and then we'll leave everything else for you guys to fill out on the offer letter. If the information is there in the comment box, then I do try to add it in. I'm probably not as good at it right now since I'm doing the offer letters for all of campus. So bear with me. I'll get back to putting in the work address and doing all of that eventually once I have some help. But for right now, the most important is definitely the FTE for the position that you're offering. So, but what you're going to do is you will click on other actions and then recruiting action and prepare job offer. So once you're in it, then this is where you're going to enter the information. So you're going to want to verify that the position number is correct. And if you have a position that has more than one position number on it, then you're going to want to click on the hourglass for that position number. And then you're going to select the position number that they're being offered. Okay. A lot of departments forget to do this. And so then it's just kind of, we guess at what position number they're being put into, or it gets pushed back once it's submitted to CAPS, and CAPS will tell you, Holly, yes, I've had to reach back out to Holly a couple of times and I'm like, wait, what position number is this one going to have? So if you can remember to change it whenever you submit the offer, that's the preferred way. If you don't remember, then CAPS will push it back to you and tell you that you have to select a different position number or they need a different one to use. But then once below that, then you're going to enter the component. And so you're going to choose the base salary, the hiring incentive, or moving expenses, whichever one is applicable to the situation that you have. And then you're going to enter the offer amount. So like I said before, if it's an hourly paid employee, then you're going to enter the hourly rate. And if it's a monthly paid employee, then you're going to enter the monthly rate. Okay. And then right below that is the comments box. The comments box is also where you can put in justification for if you're offering over midpoint. Okay. And just because if you're offering over midpoint, that doesn't necessarily mean that our office is going to immediately say no to it. We just need to know what your thought process is. Okay. So if you're offering to this person, $3 over midpoint, but it's still well within the hiring range, and the person comes, brings like 20 years of experience to the table, then, we're going to compare that person with other people on campus that have similar experience and kind of compare the pay. Okay.
Holly says she's guilty. Holly, what are you guilty of?
Of not choosing the position number.
Oh, okay.
The offer.
Got it.
Yep. So Holly has actually done a very good job of giving me justification for over midpoint
Got it.
in the
Good.
last year.
That's
So
helpful.
I'm very excited when I see the justification that there already.
That's awesome.
Yes, so in one of the theories that I like to go by is give me all the information that you guys have, and the likelihood of me having more questions is going to be less. So if you give everything to me up front and say, hey, we know this is over midpoint, but we want to offer to this person because of this specific experience that they can hit the ground running and us not to have to spend a bunch of time training the person, then as long as it's within reason and it is equitable with the rest of the people on campus in that title, then we're likely to approve it. But I always go with the theory of give more than what's necessary, and the likelihood of me having more questions is going to be less. So it's just, that's one thing that's helpful to know. But once you have all of the information entered, then you'll just click on the submit for approval. And then this is where you can put your justification or your comments in and give me the FTE and everything. And like I said, if you have an FTE that's less than 1.0, then we'll just include that information in the offer letter. Okay, and so again, if it's an IT position, Karen Kessler has to be in the approval chain for the offer. Okay, so this is kind of walking you through the process of what I do whenever I receive the job offer that you've submitted. So I look at the final candidate's application and make sure that they actually meet the minimum qualifications for the position posted. Okay, and then I confirm that they're eligible for hire. So if they've worked for the university before and within the last 3 years they were terminated because of a violation of an attendance policy or anything like that, then I verify that they either left in good standing, or if they left and not good standing, then depending on what the situation was, then I may reach back out to the hiring manager and say, hey, just FYI, this is what was in the person's file. You're welcome to move forward with this, or if you would like to discuss it further with the candidate, then you can. So again, us not saying 100% no, you can't hire this person. We just want to make sure that if they have discipline in their record, that you know about it. Because if they were terminated because they never came to work, and your position is one that is critical to your department of having someone there every single day, then this position may not be for that candidate if that was something that took place. So and then we also want to make sure that we confirm who the department interviewed. Okay, so then we're going to check and make sure that people are dispositioned into that interviewed status. And then we just make sure that the policy meets the guidelines. So we look and make sure that the offer falls within the salary range that was posted with the position. We look at internal equity on campus, and then we also can break it all the way down to your specific department. So an example that comes to mind over in like the School of Medicine. So over in the School of Medicine, if they have 30 different people in business support 2 titles, and the majority of them are at $17 an hour, but you want to offer this person $22 an hour, we're probably going to push back on that, just because the internal equity within your own college, school, or division is going to be thrown off by that. We just want to make sure that internal equity is kept in mind, because even though we have the policy or we have the guidance out there saying not to discuss how much you're paid per hour or paid per month, people still find out. And if somebody's been in the position for years and they're making on the lower part of the range, and then you bring someone new in that's making at the upper part of the range, you're gonna have questions and possibly issues within your own department. So but if everything's approved by us in terms of the offer, then what's going to happen is I'm going to create the job offer letter, and I will upload it to the activities and attachments. In the past week, I have been known to approve it and then forget to attach. So I apologize now for that. But if that happens and you don't see your offer letter in that activities and attachments tab, just shoot me an email. More than likely the letter is done. I just forgot to attach it. My email is on the verge of explosion at any moment at this point. So just lots of things happening. Okay, so once we've approved the job offer, then the department can go ahead and extend the offer to the candidate. Oh yes, and we do include the working title in the job offer. You are correct. So Holly is down at the Research Reactor and they have a lot of working titles, so she's pretty familiar with that situation. So what we do in that is we will list what the actual university title is, and then we'll say work with a working title of, and then include the working title as long as it's been an approved working title. But we do list that in there. So, but again, once the job offer is approved, then the department can go ahead and extend it to the candidate. And that's when you can provide the letter on your department letterhead over to the candidate. And then for certain union eligible positions, then the department will provide the post-offer employment testing information to that candidate. And then once we've received the acceptance, we will go ahead and request the CBC and the POET, or the post-employment testing. Now, I do want to point out, most everyone, we've not had a problem with this recently because it was a change that happened, I think, like right at a year or so ago, or maybe a little bit before that. There's technically two ways in the system that you can go in and accept the job offer. Only one of them will send the email to us letting us know to either kick off the CBC and the POET, or just sending it off to the NER folks so that they can prepare the offer for you, or prepare the hire for you. So in order to to be sure that that email is sent to us, what you need to do is click on other actions, and then recruiting actions, and accept offer. Okay. If you know of the other way, I'm not going to tell you how to do the other way just so that nobody gets confused. If you know of the other way and that's how you're doing it, we don't get an email on that letting us know that we can move forward with selecting the CBC or the POET or whatever is necessary. So just make sure you accept the offer this way, and then we should be fine. But once the job offer is accepted, then if the person requires a CBC, then we will initiate that through the system, and then that will go out. And then the hiring administrator, once the person has accepted the job offer, then this is when you would want to go back in and indicate the rejection on all of the other candidates and select the reason. Okay. We ask that you try to be as detailed as possible on the rejection reason, mainly because, again, if somebody ever comes back and complains about not being hired or something along those lines, we can pull up and see why they were rejected. And if every single person is marked as other candidate, a different candidate selected, it's not really giving us much to go off of. And so then that's when we would have to, reach back out to the department to determine why the person was rejected.
So let me put this out here. It's helpful if it's in eRecruit. So if we do receive some sort of complaint, that we can respond to the complaint. If we don't have any information in eRecruit, then we're gonna send that EEO complaint to you.
Right.
And so those federal people will contact you, and you're gonna have to respond.
Right. So it's much better if you put everything into eRecruit in that activities and attachments tab, and or into the reason why the person was rejected. So like I mentioned with the offers, the more information we have up front helps us make the decision, on if the offer is approved or not. And in terms of people being rejected or anything like that, the more information you put into the system, the less likely it is that we're going to have to come back and ask you guys questions 6 months down the road, and you all have to try and remember or find
years. I mean, we have applicants that complain about not getting hired or interviewed 2-3 years down the road. And so it's really hard to compile that information because, again, sometimes people are gone.
Right.
And so if we can see it in the system and respond and say, this is why this person wasn't selected, or we can at least say, these are the people who were interviewed and these are their credentials. If all that information is in there and we can just send that to the people that are requesting the information, it makes it a lot easier on all of us.
Exactly. And so one of the other things I mentioned earlier is if you've interviewed the person, but they weren't selected, this is when you're going to want to send that personal correspondence to them, letting them know that they weren't selected and possibly why. You could just let them know, they had a great interview, but this other person had more experience in a specific field that your department was looking for. So, and you don't have to be super specific with them, but you can if they ask questions. So, and then if it's people that you've not interviewed, then like I said, you're more than welcome to send the generic correspondence from eRecruit. But just some sort of correspondence from your department is appreciated by the candidates, because it lets them know whether or not to, you know, continue looking for other jobs, or, you know, maybe they continue to hope that you guys are going to call them to come in for an interview. So, once the job is accepted, I'll either initiate the CBC, or if they're a transfer and they don't need a CBC, then I'll send that over to the new hire registration folks and have them prepare the hire. One thing that you will want to keep in mind, if it's a healthcare position, then, and they have interaction with patients, then you do have to have a CBC. So, and we'll touch on that a little bit more here in just a moment. So, like I mentioned, as soon as we know the offer is accepted, then we will initiate the CBC. If the person works over in the hospital, then they do have to have a CBC every single time, even if they're just going from a part-time position to a full-time position within their same department. If they have patient interaction, then they are required to have a CBC each time. If you need to request a CBC for a part-time position that wasn't hired through eRecruit, then what you'll do is you'll fill out the part-time information on the kiosk link that's on our website. And then those forms will come over to our MU HRS inbox, and then we will initiate it for you in the Sterling website. So in order to find the CBC form on our website, you would go to hrs.missouri.edu, and then go to policies, click on policies and procedures, background checks and criminal convictions. And then over on the right-hand side under related forms, you would select criminal background check, part-time for staff and academic request. This is what the form is going to look like. So you can put your job opening ID in there if you have it, but more than likely, if it's a part-time position and it wasn't posted through eRecruit, then you're not going to have anything to list there, so you can just leave it blank. But we need to know who the hiring manager is. We need to know what the department is. The university title is very helpful, because that determines for us what type of a background check that we are going to run. So if you're hiring somebody into like an adjunct professor or an adjunct instructor title, then we're going to check for an education with their CBC. Okay, if you're hiring somebody into that temp technical title or something along those lines, then we're not going to request for education verification, because more than likely they don't have any education to be verified if they're just doing a temp technical position. So the university title is very helpful. And then it will ask for the person's first name, last name, and their email address. So, and then we will send that out once we've received it. So education verification is required. That changed whenever we switched over to Sterling in November of 2019. And so if the position, or I'm sorry, if the candidate indicates on their resume or application that they have completed some sort of education, then we are going to verify it. Okay. So if they have down that they've completed a bachelor's degree, but really they're like 2 months away from having their bachelor's degree, then it's going to come back and show us that they're not actually, that they've not completed the degree. Okay. So if somebody is applying for a position and they mark down that they have education that they really don't, then we will know about it with the criminal background check. And as I already mentioned, employees that are transferring to a new department or campus, if they're moving around, if it's a non-patient care position, then they do not require to have a CBC anytime they transfer. Now, if it is a patient care position, then they do have to have one each and every time. And or if the employee is transferring from a student title into a staff or faculty title, then they do have to have a CBC for that as well, because student titles do not require CBCs. But as soon as they move into that staff or faculty title, then they do need to have one. So, all right. So once the CBC is complete, whenever we get information back from Sterling saying that the person has passed, then what will happen is new employee registration, or NER, they will generate the employee ID if necessary, and then kick off the EPAF for the department, okay? If it is for a part-time position that is not in eRecruit, then NER will generate the employee ID and email the department saying that they're free to proceed with the hire and that they can start their own EPAF, okay? Once the department has finished their EPAF and it's been submitted, then that is when the onboarding email will be sent out, okay? If by chance something happens and the onboarding email doesn't make it to the employee, then we can have NER resend the onboarding email. Maybe if they applied with an email address that they no longer have access to, then we can resend it if necessary. But once they get that onboarding email, then that's when they'll be able to go in and complete their online documents. And then once those are done, then they do need to still come in and present their I-9 documents to new employee registration. And so it would be a passport or, visa documents, social security card, driver's license, those types of things. So they do have to be the originals. You cannot bring in copies, and it cannot be emailed to us. It has to be done in person. So, okay. So once onboarding has been completed, then that will be sent over to CAPS for review, and then they will approve the hire e-form. And then if CAPS is the one that has any issues, then they'll reach back out to you to fix things if necessary. But once CAPS approves everything, then that will load the hire form into PeopleSoft and HR, the payroll database, and create a job record for the person. And then that will change, the applicant status will be changed to hired. And then if there's only one target opening on the position, then they will change it to filled closed on the position, okay? So other than that, no one besides CAPS or ourselves in the recruit team should ever close out positions themselves. And they shouldn't mark them as filled or closed, even if you guys have hired the position, say you had to create your own EPAF, still email our office to have it closed out, just so then that way we can also save that email to the position. And so we'll know that the EPAF was handled outside of eRecruit. Okay, so if you need to request security access for eRecruit for anyone in your office, what you will do is you will send the division or department admin for your area will send over an email to the HRS requisitions inbox. And then you will need to give us the person's name and their employee ID. And then what we'll do is we will request that security access for them. Usually takes like 3 days or so. It just depends on how busy the security team is. And then once that's done, then they'll be able to access the positions that they are assigned to.
But we shouldn't have too many of those requests because of the dynamic security that was implemented. Gosh.
Was it last summer? I think it was
It might have been during pandemic.
I think it was.
A little hazy right now. But with dynamic security, basically anybody who was entered into any of the hire manager, interviewer, and even interested party roles. If you were a second level or third level type supervisor in PeopleSoft, you automatically are assigned PeopleSoft level eRecruit security, and it happens pretty quickly.
Usually, I think with the system updates that as it runs throughout the day.
Throughout the day, okay. I was gonna say overnight, but I think you're right. It's
yeah.
throughout the day, and that happens pretty much on the hour, every hour between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. So we should have less requests for those, but if you find someone who still needs hire manager security or PeopleSoft security for eRecruit, just again, send it to that rec inbox.
Yep. All right, and of course, as many of you know, if you have questions, you're welcome to email us in the requisitions inbox. If you CC or if you email directly to myself or Keisha, if we're out of the office, then nobody else has access to our inboxes. So there's a good chance that you won't get a response right away. So if you have questions, it's best to email the requisitions inbox, because then if one of us is away, then somebody else is automatically covering that inbox for us. And so then that way you'll get an answer back quickly. You could try to contact our office. If we're in the office, then we're able to take phone calls. If we're away at meetings or, away from the desk doing whatever, then it's kind of hard to catch us on the phone sometimes. So email does tend to be the quickest way to get responses to any issues or questions. So, all right. Any questions for us? Oh, thank you, Holly. She says that I'm awesome to work with.